Hey everybody, this is Anthony. Welcome to VR Game Rankings YouTube channel. This, of course, is the daily vlog. This is episode 71. It is Monday, January 8th, and this is the day that we've been waiting for. Now, it's a little bit anticlimactic here because information has leaked. If you guys go back to Friday's show, I said on Friday I wondered if over the weekend there could possibly be a leak that would happen in regards to this HTC Vive news, and it did happen. It happened this morning. I woke up today, as far as I know, last night. I mean, I don't know when this leak actually hit, but I don't remember seeing this last night. I woke up this morning, I went to the Vive subreddit, and this is all anybody was talking about. Obviously, this leak has hit. And so now we have some information that has come out. Now, obviously, we don't know with absolute certainty if this is legit, but it does sound pretty freaking legit. It does sound pretty freaking possible that this information is totally valid. So we're going to go ahead and go off of this information. Once again, I have to say, I am recording this show. It is 10:17 a.m. right now as I'm speaking Pacific time, okay? And by the time this show gets uploaded to YouTube and finally ends up on YouTube where you guys can watch it, it is the Vive press conference will have been over. All the real information will be out. Everybody will know everything. So a lot of what I'm about to talk about might be a moot point at this point, but basically I'm going to go off this leaked information and kind of give my feelings about that and kind of go through this different thought processes here. And so I'm just going to do the best job I can, but please understand I am recording this way before this press conference. Don't have all the information. A lot of it is speculation, but I'm going to go ahead and try and do the best job that I can as far as what this leak has brought forth. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the leak. So it's kind of interesting. I'm not totally surprised by what has happened here. In fact, that this information has leaked out, because when you think about the various video game companies and the PC gaming companies, there's only a handful of companies that seem to do an incredibly good job of not allowing any leaks whatsoever. And the ones that spring to mind immediately is Nintendo and Valve. You very, very rarely do you get a leak coming out of Nintendo or coming out of Valve. They run those ships very tightly, and we typically do not find out any kind of breaking information. Now, Sony, stuff will leak out of Sony, stuff will leak out of Microsoft. It's very common, especially if you like to, if you go to NeoGAF, like if it's going to be E3, if E3 is almost going to happen, if you're on NeoGAF like 2 days before E3, you'll get a lot of the stuff spoiled, ridiculously spoiled, because a lot of these NeoGAF members, they go into full-on detective mode. I mean, these guys start scouring the web for any tiny little bit of information, and it's almost like crowdsourcing. Like they're basically trying to find any little tidbit of information. They're checking this source, that source. They're combining the information together, and a lot of stuff ends up getting spoiled. And usually Nintendo and Valve are really the only ones that are able to really hold their information pretty good where there's no spoilage. So I'm not incredibly shocked here, because let's remember HTC is a phone company, okay? I mean, that's where their base business is. They're a phone company. Now, they're operating in this video game world now, but they're not a video game company by trade, so they're probably not used to trying to protect secrets in such a clandestine type of a way and trying to hold it back like Fort Knox, like Nintendo and Valve like to do. So not incredibly surprising that a leak has come out. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get into it? What is this leak? What have we learned? Okay, so the first thing is we are apparently going to get a headset called the Vive Pro. Okay, so it's the Vive Pro. And basically the leak is with Vive Pro and also the Vive wireless adapter. So these are the two big information pieces that are supposedly going to come out at this news conference today, which I believe is 1 p.m. Pacific time at the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas. As far as I'm aware, that's where this press conference will be held. So all the final information will come there. But basically, the reality here is that this is not Vive 2.0. Okay, so anybody that was hoping for Vive 2.0, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a disappointment here, because what we're getting Vive 1.5. Okay, so that's what we're getting here. Now, the good news about this being Vive 1.5 is you think of all the people that bought an HTC Vive over this holiday season, the Vive Winter Bundle and all the different deals that happened with Fallout 4 VR being included, with the deluxe audio strap being included, all these little special deals that happened all the way from Black Friday all the way through the Christmas holidays. Tons of people came on board. And if Vive today announced Vive 2.0 and it was like a completely new headset with all kinds of new stuff in there, you have to feel for the people that just bought the old one. But with this being a Vive 1.5, I don't know that the people that just bought a Vive are going to be crying a river over this, because the differences, I mean, there are some substantial differences here. There are some nice things here, and we don't know all of it. And I'm going to get into all of that, but I don't know, basically what I'm saying here is the people that just bought a Vive not too long ago, this isn't necessarily a complete and utter disaster for them from the standpoint of being a Vive 1.5. Now, for the rest of us, those of us that were really excited, myself personally, I kind of was hoping for straight up Vive 2.0. This is a little bit of a mild disappointment, because we're not getting like any kind of a huge jump as far as I can tell. And this is much more of a mild update, probably an update that should have happened a while ago, to be completely honest. I mean, I talked about this on Friday's show, that Vive, they should have updated their package a long time ago. And so that's apparently what's going on here, is they're finally updating their package. So what is the story? So basically, the Vive Pro has two OLED displays with a resolution of 2880 by 1600. So this basically breaks down to 1440 by 1600 per screen, okay? Now, in comparison, you have the Microsoft Windows mixed reality headsets. Most of those are 1440 by 1440. Now, of course, the Samsung Odyssey, I believe, has the exact same resolution as this Vive Pro, and it's not inconceivable. In fact, it's highly expected that the screens that are in the Vive Pro are exactly the same as the screens that are in the Samsung Odyssey. So that's basically what we got here. So we do have a higher resolution. This is technically a 78% increase in resolution over the normal HTC Vive. The normal HTC Vive has a resolution of 2160 by 1200, which is 1080 by 1200 per screen, okay? And so this is a 78% bump over that. It's kind of weird, I remember I was in a thread and somebody was talking about how, well, if this is similar to, say, the Samsung Odyssey, it's basically an 80% increase in resolution. And you would think the numbers would have to be way higher for it to really be an 80% increase. But anyway, technically this is a 78% increase. So we do get that bump in resolution. The other big news here is the integrated loudspeakers. We're assuming that this basically means that the deluxe audio strap is basically going to be built into the headset, and it's just going to come pre-packaged with the headset. Now, we don't know if it will be slightly redesigned or if it's basically just going to be a typical Vive with this new deluxe audio strap built in. There's a lot of other questions that we have to get to, and I'll get to that in just a minute, but I just want to cover some of the basics here. Okay, and then so the other part of it is the Vive wireless adapter, which is coming to both the original Vive and the Vive Pro, and that this wireless adapter is using Intel's WiGig technology. And the downside here is that this is probably not going to be available. This wireless adapter probably won't be available until the third quarter of this year. So we're going to have to continue to wait. But hopefully the technology, Intel's WiGig, the hope is that this will be superior to the TP-Cast and the situations that are going on with TP-Cast. Obviously, there's a lot of worry about the TP-Cast, about this green line that is constantly there, that, you know, will that burn into your screens? You know, people are worried about that. And so the hope is with this Intel technology, hopefully it'll be a little bit better. So this is the information that leaked out. Again, we don't know for sure if this is actually legitimate information. It sounds relatively legitimate from a lot of standpoints, because I remember on Friday, so I did the show on Friday, right? And then later in the day, I was on the Vive subreddit, and I got back into that thread, where the main thread where kind of all of this information came out about the tweet. And there was a guy in that thread that had a very well-reasoned post where he kind of thought about, he was talking about the manufacturing lines. I mean, this guy pretty much called all of this like verbatim. I should have went back to that thread and quoted all this, because the guy did a outstanding job. But he basically said, look, this is not going to be Vive 2.0. This is Vive 1.5, because they get to use the same manufacturing lines. He broke the whole thing down. Really well-reasoned post. Did a great job. I don't know if this guy had inside information and was just kind of leaking it almost a little bit, but that's kind of what we have here is, so we're now going to have two levels of the HTC Vive. You're going to have the standard regular HTC Vive, and then you're going to have this Vive Pro. And so one of the biggest questions that we're going to have is, what is the price? Now, I don't know if we're going to get this at this news conference at 1 p.m. today. Hopefully we do. It'd be nice if we did. Also, when is this going to be available? But before we get into all of that, we have to think about, there's these two levels. So you got standard Vive and you've got Vive Pro. And the fact that they're calling it Vive Pro, I think that kind of hints that the price could be this premium price. So what we could see with HTC Vive, here's my personal prediction. Okay, so right now, if you wanted to buy a Vive right now, it's $599 basically for an HTC Vive package. So the regular Vive is going to continue to exist, and then we're going to get this new Vive Pro. My personal opinion is that the current Vive is going to drop to $499, or maybe if they want to get a little bit more aggressive, $449.99, putting it a little bit closer to where the Oculus Rift is. And so that's going to be the base model, and then they're going to have the Pro, and the Pro could very well come in with the same exact price that the original HTC Vive launched with way back in April of 2016, $799. It would have the integrated audio, it would have this new higher resolution, and all of the stuff that comes with that. So that's a possibility that we could be looking at these two different markets. I mean, they are calling it the Vive Pro, which does kind of lead us in that direction. They're kind of saying, look, this is the Pro model. This isn't for everybody. If you just want an entry-level Vive, you get the standard version. But if you want to jump to a new level, you can go ahead and go with the Vive Pro, and it's going to be this new, more expensive model. So that's a possibility there. When is this all going to be available? That's a good question. The fact that this is a Vive 1.5 rather than a completely new Vive would kind of suggest that it might not take a tremendous amount of time for this item to become available. This could be coming possibly this spring. I wouldn't be completely surprised if this came this spring. Maybe early summer is another possibility as well, because we know the Intel WiGig technology is going to be probably a third quarter kind of thing. So if it wants to kind of have some synergy with that, it could come a little bit later there. Okay, the big question though is, what about Knuckles? I think this is the biggest question of all. Well, also what we don't know about the Vive Pro, we have to assume that there will be a package with the Vive Pro that will include controllers, include base stations, include the entire kit for a brand new buyer. But you also have to imagine the Vive Pro will be available a la carte, where you could simply just get the headset by itself, no base stations, no controllers, nothing else, just the headset. And then you're basically upgrading your HTC Vive situation a little bit here by simply upgrading the headset. So that's probably going to be an option as well. But we have to assume there will be a package with controllers and base stations. And then that question goes to Knuckles. Is Knuckles going to be in the box? Now, I don't know. I'm kind of hedging to the idea that Knuckles isn't going to be in the box, and that is tremendously disappointing. And one of the reasons I think this isn't Vive 2.0. Again, this is Vive 1.5. This is a mild upgrade. If this was Vive 2.0, I think Knuckles would be absolutely mandatory. You would absolutely have to have Knuckles in the box if this was truly Vive 2.0. This is Vive 1.5, so you don't necessarily need to absolutely have Knuckles in the box. Now, will the Vive wands be different in any way, shape, or form? And you'd have to think that there will be some minor changes to the Vive wands. We know the Vive wands has certain problems. They break down. The trackpad tends to have some issues. There tends to be some issues with Vive wands. A lot of people have complained about their trackpads having clicking problems and not registering clicks, haptic feedback problems, all these sorts of things. HTC has noticed this over the last 2 years that this has been available, almost 2 years, and they've seen this. They know this from a firsthand perspective of what they've got returned back. They know what their failure rates are internally, and so you have to imagine that they would want to redesign that in some way so that they don't have to deal with as many people doing warranty repairs. So you have to figure that the Vive wands will be different in some minor ways. Now, will their size be lower just a little bit? Will they reduce the size a little bit? Will they make them a little bit more ergonomic? Will a thumbstick be added to them in some place? Will any extra buttons be added? We don't know if any of this is going to happen. And again, of course, there is the Knuckles question as well. Again, I don't think we're going to get any answers on the Knuckles today. What about new lighthouses? Will this feature the 2.0 lighthouses? And the other question is what kind of sensors is going to be on the Vive Pro? Are these going to have the original sensors that are only compatible with the original lighthouses? Or are these going to have the new sensors, which I believe are both compatible with the new lighthouses and also backwards compatible with the previous lighthouses? Now, personally, I would have to assume this will have the new sensors. And the reason I say that is because these new base stations are going to start coming out at a certain point, and HTC doesn't want to get into a problem where its new headset is not also workable with these new sensors. So it would make sense they would have these newer sensors on the headset so that it works with both of them. You know, that just makes sense. So I do believe it will have the new sensors. Will it have the new lighthouses? Probably, I would say probably, because the lighthouses, this new lighthouse technology that Valve has been working on, they've been working on this for quite a while. This is locked in stone. This is well-known technology. The plans have been out there. So I'm sure, I remember reading something from Dan O'Brien, you know, the HTC guy, where he meets with Valve like on a weekly basis or something like that. You know, there's a lot of, so Valve does give information to HTC, and I believe that this will have the new lighthouses because those have been around long enough. I'm wondering about the knuckles. You know, I'm really wondering about the knuckles. I don't think it's going to get the knuckles. Okay, so another question is, will this include the new Valve lens technology? We heard this was a story a while back where Valve has come up with some new technology that has to do with the Valve lenses, where it would be combined with the way that they do Steam VR, where they kind of work together to reduce stray light. I think it helps with chromatic aberration a little bit. I actually should have brought up that story and got that information before doing this. Sorry about that. Didn't look into that, but I'm hoping that it does have the new Valve lens technology, although when we saw that picture there on that tweet, it still shows those concentric rings, you know, those Fresnel lens rings. And I don't know if Valve's lenses are using the Fresnel lenses like that. So I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out at 1 p.m., of course. And then the wireless transmitter. Is the wireless transmitter for this new Intel WiGig technology, is any of that going to be built into the Vive Pro? Because I think this is huge. This would be a real differentiator if the transmitter is like built into the headset. Because the thing is, if the transmitter is not built into the headset, if you guys have seen that video where Intel was showing off their Wi-Fi thing, you got this, the guy has like a big ball device that is sticking on the top of his head, which that is basically the transmitter that's sending the signal to the receiver. And so how is that going to work? You know, but it would be ideal, absolutely ideal, if that was built into the headset, integrated into the design of the headset, so you don't really notice. You don't have like a big bulbous thing sticking on top and it's just kind of built in. That would make it so much nicer. And then you still, the wireless option would still be an option. You'd still have to pay for that, but you have part of it built in. So part of the issue is dealt with right there. So kind of that's all the information that we're working with right here. And, you know, this does make sense. I'm on the newest episode of VR Roundtable, which came out today. We had a 2-week delay. We didn't have an episode last week for VR Roundtable. So you guys can also go over to the VR Roundtable channel and check out our new episode over there. We kind of talk about some of this stuff too. Maybe not in this kind of a detail, really. I don't know. I mean, we didn't get that into it. But one of the subjects we did get into was the idea of HDMI, the HDMI problem that would have been a problem here if they went with significantly higher resolution. Now, they were able to sidestep this problem by going with this resolution that the Samsung Odyssey has. But if they went with a much higher resolution, like if they were looking to double the resolution, they would have had an issue from a DisplayPort standpoint and from an HDMI standpoint. Now, we do have this new HDMI 2.1 standard, but no products are currently available that have that. And the way I understand it is the first products that are probably going to have that are going to be late summer products. So if they were to want to have HDMI 2.1 in this headset, we wouldn't be getting this headset until maybe September or even October. So it would be delayed an incredibly long time to add that HDMI 2.1. And so there was an issue there. And then, well, what do? Do you go to DisplayPort? Do you have two wires coming out of it with two separate DisplayPort wires? So they were able to sidestep all of that by doing this. The real question we get to, though, is this enough? Is this enough of an upgrade? Is this enough of a boost The one thing I go back to is Steve from VR Roundtable. He tried a Dell mixed reality headset. He had one for like 6 or 7 days. He ended up returning it ultimately didn't like it that much for him to keep it. And what he said was the resolution, now that one is 1440 by 1440, so it doesn't have this little extra bump, and he has not tried the Samsung. But what he said was the resolution was not a night and day difference, and the only time he noticed it was going back to the regular Vive, going back to an Oculus Rift from the Dell, not putting the Dell on and saying, oh, wow, this looks so much better. Not really noticing that much, but noticing a slight degradation when going back. So basically not this night and day difference. Again, it wasn't the Samsung. So it's going to be kind of mild, you know, it's going to be kind of a mild improvement, but it's still exciting. And again, we don't have all the information. This is 10 o'clock when I'm doing this. I don't have all the information here, so I'll definitely have much more tomorrow, but that's going to go ahead and wrap it up. This has been episode 71. Sorry we didn't get into any other news. I just kind of wanted to get into this leak. I thought this was important, and tomorrow we'll examine this. We'll also look at some other news as well, but this has been episode 71 for the VR Game Rankings Daily Vlog. Of course, it is Monday, January 8th, and I will see everybody tomorrow. So take it easy. Later.